Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for checking out this bonus edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. All right. So the other day, we were in I was in one of my group chats, right? Because I, to be honest, I spend very little time on Twitter and Facebook like I used to. Now is where it's the group chats. That's where the conversation is. That's where it's at. That's where the laughs and the jokes and the are being said. But I was in my group chat with my boys from Dead End Sports. Shout out to the crew. And something interesting happened. My boy Q the sixth man, Q asked me specifically if I was creating a Mount Rushmore of Atlanta hip hop, who would be on that Mount Rushmore of Atlanta hip hop artists. I thought that was very interesting. First of all, Q is a huge hip hop head. Me and Q go back, man. Cool cat, man. Really, really sharp young brother. I had to think about it for a second, because when you think about, Mount Rushmore, there can only be four people or four things on the Mount Rushmore. Some may be a little bit more obvious to others and some may not be. For me, it made me think, because I remember what hip hop looked like before I got here. And then I remember how hip hop blew up after I got here. Now, just for those of you who don't know, I moved here to Atlanta from South Carolina after I graduated from South Carolina State University. I moved here in July of 1997. Atlanta's home. I've lived here longer than I've lived any other place in my life. And so I came when the city was really, really booming as far as hip hop was concerned, and really just taking off. I got here in between Outkast's, I think, had the second album come out yet? ATLiens, I think ATLiens had come out. ATLiens had come out, and this was post Olympics in 1996. But this was a great time to be in the city. Music wise, it was incredible, because you could get so much hip hop and different styles of hip hop if you wanted to, from, you had your Outkast, you had, streets, you had, the commercial stuff, you had just a little bit of everything. You had a lot of independent artists, you had places and clubs where you could hear spoken word, on any given night. It just depends on what you wanted to hear, what you were into. Nonetheless, if I had to, and this was my response to Q, if I had to break it down, it would go like this. And these are in no particular order. Number one on my Mount Rushmore of Atlanta hip hop. It's pretty obvious. Dre and Big Boy. Outkast. Outkast, I think, for me, goes on my Mount Rushmore because obviously they kicked in the door for the city. They kicked in the door, in my opinion, for the South. Now, don't get me wrong. There were other Southern MCs, with apologies to, Ghetto Boys, Underground Kings, UGK, and, even Luke and 2 Live Crew. There were other acts to come before Outkast dropped in 1994. However, Outkast was different. They were looked at universally as the first MCs from the South and from Atlanta who were really, really spitting. And I don't think that's fair, because UGK was spitting too, but I think UGK at that particular time was probably more of a regional thing as opposed to Outkast, who kind of burst on the scene in 1994 and was everywhere. But Outkast as a group, they go on the Mount Rushmore. They pave the way for damn near everybody to come after them, particularly MCs from Atlanta. And if Outkast doesn't open that door, then Atlanta probably never gets heard of or gets the love or respect that they've gotten, which has led to the city's dominance in hip hop over the last 20 plus years. So definitely Outkast at number 1. That's one place on the Mount Rushmore. Slot number 2 is not a not a rapper. He's actually a producer, Jermaine Dupri. And just for the record, I don't call him JD because there's only one JD, and that's Jay Dilla. But that's another story for another day. But Dupri, man, launching So So Def was major. That was a major feather in his cap because it was a hip hop / R&B label. And he was able to open so many doors for so many artists. And then he was an artist himself. He's often overlooked, but he was one of the first, Southern cats to, run his own label and, really help put Atlanta on the map. When you think about his involvement with his artists like the Brat, or even on the R&B side with a group like 112, you can't deny what Jermaine Dupri's imprint has been on hip hop, more specifically Atlanta hip hop. So yeah, Jermaine Dupri, I think he's probably, for most people, if they create a Mount Rushmore, he's probably going to be on their Mount Rushmore. Slot number 3, T.I. Now, I know T.I.'s in a little trouble right now, but we're just talking about the music here. T.I., I think, another guy who blazed so many trails. My personal favorite album from T.I., Trap Music, which is a great piece of work, I think. Opened so many doors as far as, talking about trap music and the trap. And really, when you look at his influence on music and his influence on acting, I don't think that can be denied. Now, T.I. has found his way to get into trouble. And, one thing I found about T.I., when you start talking to hip hop fans, like, people either like T.I. or they don't. Like, there's really no in between. Like, ask 10 people, like, what do you think about T.I.? Do you like T.I.? They'll either tell you, yeah, I like T.I., or they'll say, no, I don't like T.I. Like, there's no, you won't ever get, oh, he's okay, I think he's decent. No, it's, you either like him or you don't. But I think what he did for the city, both personally and professionally, has been very good and very beneficial. So I'd have to put him in the 3rd slot. 4th slot, this is probably going to surprise 95% of you. The Migos. That's right, the Migos. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I might know 3 Migos songs. But, Migos introduced a particular style, a particular flow that really changed hip-hop and changed Atlanta's hip-hop. And it changed the way people rapped over these trap beats and stuff like that. And, again, regardless of whether or not you like them or hate them or think they can rap, they've been influential. I don't think anybody can deny that. They have been extremely influential, and their success can't be denied. It is what it is. Again, regardless of whether or not you like them or listen to them or anything, I am one. Again, I don't listen to their music, but even from afar, I can appreciate what they've done and what they brought to the game. I also told Q that I had a couple honorable mentions. Obviously, Ludacris. Luda. When I first moved here in 1997, Luda was actually on the radio. He hosted a radio show on the hip hop radio station, Hot 107.9. Or was it? It was 97.5 back then. I think it's Hot 107.9. I don't listen to the radio, but it was Hot 97.5 back then. Chris Lover was his name. Chris Lover and his partner in crime, Poon Daddy. And they were on from like 5 to 9 or 4 to 9 or something like that. I used to listen to him every day. And but he went from being an intern at a radio station to, cutting his demo, his mixtape sold out in the streets, got picked up by Def Jam, and the rest is history. Killer Mike is another one. Regardless of what you think about Killer Mike and his politics or lack thereof, an incredible MC. Killer Mike is dope. And, from his individual success as a rapper, his success as a businessman, his success in the political field, if you will, and obviously his success with Run the Jewels. I think he's an honorable mention worthy candidate. Another honorable mention that I'm sure that if you're not from Atlanta, you probably don't know this guy. Raheem the Dream. When I moved here in 1997, Raheem the Dream was on the radio. Raheem the Dream was a local guy who didn't really have the success outside of the city. He had hits and street records that people knew of around here that even to this day, if you're from Atlanta or you've been here long enough to claim that you're from Atlanta, when Raheem the Dream joints come on in the city, in a club, you're going to jam because he has some jams. But, he just he was kind of like in that era just before Cass got on. And so he never got a chance to see the commercial success that, groups like Outkast or Goody Mob saw. But nevertheless, very, very important local artist. Who else? Oh, cannot forget Ryan Cameron. Now, no, Ryan's not a rapper or a singer. Ryan Cameron is a radio personality. Ryan's been on the radio here 30 years maybe. I know when I got here, he was at 97.5. In fact, Ryan had a show at 97.5, which was the new hip hop station. And I think that station got on air like right before I got here. I think it was like 96. And Ryan's intern was Chris Bridges, a.k.a. Chris Lover, a.k.a. Ludacris. So Ryan put Chris on. But Ryan has been a radio personality. He's worked at a couple of different radio stations here. He does TV. He is the voice announcer at the Hawks games, the Atlanta Hawks. Huge deal here in the city. Honorable mention, if you're from here or you know about Atlanta music, Ryan Cameron definitely would be an honorable mention for me. And the last thing that I would make an honorable mention would be LaFace Records. I probably could make a case that LaFace Records could be on the Mount Rushmore if they had stayed in Atlanta and did not move to LA. LaFace Records, obviously, led by L.A. Reid and Babyface, were responsible for groups like TLC. They were responsible for putting on Outkast. Major players in the music industry. Ultimately, they ended up moving their offices from here to LA, but can't deny it at all. So yeah, those are my honorable mentions. I've given you my Atlanta's Mount Rushmore. Hit me up and tell me what is yours. That's going to do it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for checking out this bonus edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'll catch you guys next time. 5 Stack.